Welcome to Jessica's Homeschool. This video, we are going to be covering step 2 on how to homeschool. This is a part of our Getting Started series, step by step, on how to homeschool your kids. This is step number 2. However, if you have not watched step number 1, I'm going to put a link down in the description below so you can go to that video, and please watch that video first, and then you can come back here and watch step number 2. With that being said, let's get started. In this step of the process, we are going to cover how to unenroll your children from the public education system. If your child has been a part of the public education system, whether it was elementary school, middle school, or even high school, there is a formal unenrollment that needs to probably happen for your kid, and this is going to depend each state. Talking about video number 1, each state has different requirements on how this process goes down and what needs to happen and what steps that you need to take in order to unenroll your child from the public school system. So I'm going to show you what we did for my state and discuss this in a little bit more detail so that you can kind of have this as a base mark for what to do possibly in your state, because it'll be probably pretty similar to what you're going to be doing as well. In the state that we live in, which is the state of Washington, there is a compulsory attendance age of 8 years old. And what that means is that that is the age that they are required to start going to school. Now, I know that sounds a little funny because kindergarten, obviously, my kids start when they're 5 years old and they start going to school then. But it's technically not required in the state of Washington. Kids don't have to actually go to school and start the school process or start elementary school until the age of 8. Other states, like Idaho, have a compulsory attendance age of the age of 7. So that's something to keep in mind too. They have an age required that they have to start school at the age of 7, and they cannot finish high school before the age of 16. For some reason, that's a requirement in Idaho. Now, the reason that I'm bringing this up is because if a child is under 8 and has been officially enrolled in the public school, the parent must formally withdraw the child. That means if your child is under the age of 8 and was in possibly kindergarten, first grade, or second grade last year, you will still need to unenroll your child formally from the public education system. Now, if your child is over the age of 8, or say that this school year they would have been turning 8, there is a different way that we do this. You need to file a declaration of intent to provide home-based instruction. This is a form that must be filed annually each year in our state that we are in, and please look up your state to see if you're required to do something annually as well. Now, also remember that each state could change their rules on this as years go on. So if you're listening to this video and you've looked up your regulations in your state and you're figuring out how to file the form for the declaration of intent for home-based instructions, and you find out that now they are requiring it to be an annual filing, just kind of keep up with that and always check maybe every summer on your regulations for your state and what they require for filing for, having your kids to be home and homeschooled. In my state, you do not need to file this form for children that are under the age of 8. What does need to happen is a formal withdrawal letter instead for children under the age of 8, and we are going to talk about that later in this video. Now, every state's different. Remember, I said Idaho, their age is 7. And for the state of Idaho, it looks like right now, currently, they only require that you do a formal withdrawal letter, so you don't have to do this declaration of intent form that they do require in the state of Washington. Every state's different. Please look up your particular state and those requirements. The form that needs to be filed for children over the age of 8 and above in the state of Washington is the Declaration of Intent to provide home-based instruction. If you don't live in the state of Washington, you might have something very similar to this type of a form, but maybe it's just worded a little bit differently. And so just keep watching the video because I'm going to tell you kind of the ins and outs of this and how to do it. This form may be obtained from and returned to the superintendent of the school district in which you live or the district that accepts the student as a transfer student. So that means that you're going to be filling out a form in which it's going to be returned to the superintendent of the school district in which the child is currently enrolled in. Whether they were a transfer student, you've got boundary exceptions or something, whichever school district your child is enrolled in currently, that's the school district in which you will be filing this form. The information you need to include on the form is your children's name and age, parent's name, address, and indicate that you're qualified or using a supervising certificated teacher, and then you need to sign and date the form. Now, the last part of this, when I said that you're qualified, that you're indicating that you're qualified or using a supervising certificated teacher, that's specifically for the state of Washington. Washington has certain requirements in our state that you either need to have, and that's in step 1, actually, when you're looking into your state's requirements. Our state of Washington requires that you have to have 1 year of college or 45 college credits. Or if you don't have that, you can get qualified by taking an online course or an in-person homeschooling course to get qualified. Or if you don't do that, you just have to have a supervising teacher that will check in with you and your children to make sure that work is getting done. So there's different ways in the state of Washington that they go about that, but that you do have to indicate on the form that you are that you're doing something, that you're qualified to do it, or you're having somebody supervise the instruction. Just remember that each state is different, so, like the state of Idaho does not have this requirement. So please just look into your particular state and double check what they would require as far as requirements for being able to homeschool your kids. And of course, that is all in my video for step 1 of the process. This is important to also note that the school districts are not legally authorized to request additional information above and beyond what we just talked about. The reason for this form is that this form protects the school. The school is not responsible for the education of the child. This form also protects the parents in that your child is not truant. This is also important to note. Your declaration of intent does not limit your ability to use the public school for extracurricular activities or part-time enrollment. That technically means that if you kids still want to participate in certain extracurricular activities as far as sports go or music programs that the school may offer, then they should be allowed to be able to do that, or possibly even part of the clubs, the different things like in high school, when my daughter was doing that, there's all sorts of different things from tennis to dance team to science clubs and meetings and technology ones to she was involved with orchestra and some other stuff like that. So your kids can still do some of these extracurricular activities even if they're being homeschooled. Under absolutely no circumstance is a child under 8 ever obligated to be included on a declaration of intent, including a child previously enrolled in school. Let me reemphasize that's for the state of Washington. Your state could be slightly different on that rule. Also, for children under 8, a formal withdrawal letter is what is needed to formally withdraw your student. What I will do is that I'm going to put a link to a formal withdrawal letter that was indicated under a Washington homeschooling website that you can look at, use. Possibly you can even use it for your state if you just change some of the wording on it or something and type up something, especially if your state just says that all you need to do is file a formal withdrawal letter. Like the state of Idaho. any child enrolled in any elementary, middle school, or high school in Idaho can just use a formal withdrawal letter, and you actually just send it to the school that your child's enrolled in instead of sending it to the school district. So I think, with that being said, each state could have slightly different ways of taking your child and unenrolling them from the public school system. But I will put a link below down in the description for the formal withdrawal letter that can be used. The form, the Declaration of Intent to Provide Home-Based Instruction form, this is something that you just need to go to your school district's website. So whatever school district we talked about that your student is enrolled in, go to their website. From there, do a search for homeschooling or home-based instruction, or you could type in Declaration of Intent to Homeschool. Now, if your school district is like our school district in that you could do a search for all these things and not locate anything on their website or anything talking about homeschooling on their website whatsoever, then the last resort and what I had to do back when I took my children out of the public school system was I had to find the contact information for the district, and I sent them an email. This is what I typed in my email to them, and you are more than welcome to use this for an email that you are going to be sending to your school district's website as well. This is what I wrote. Under the subject line, I said intent to homeschool. And then I wrote to them, I said, "Good morning. Please send me the Declaration of Intent to Homeschool form as I wish to withdraw my children from public school. Please let me know if I need to inform the elementary school that they are enrolled in about our decision to homeschool or if you handle it." And then I put sincerely Jessica, or I had, thank you so much, Jessica, or, warmly Jessica. I left it very cordial with my email, but it was direct and right to the point to get my request across. The reply that I received back was actually very nice from them. It said, "Thanks for your message. Please see," it was a web link that they had sent me, "for information on the process, a link to an online intent to homeschool form, and contact information if you have any questions." I was able to click on that link that they sent me. It directed me straight to an online form that they actually have for the school district. That was the Declaration of Intent form. And all I had to do was fill out that information, my child's name, age, my name. I think it had our address. I checked a box on qualifications and signed and dated it. And it was all online. And then it just had to press submit. It took me probably less than 2 minutes per child for me to fill out that form and just send it back to them. And this is something that in my state, I actually have to do this every single year for each of my kids that I am homeschooling right now. So I get to do it again this summer and let the school district know that we are still homeschooling, basically. I wanted to also mention that just because you decide right now that I am pulling my kids out, I need to unenroll them, you're making this decision, your state requires, a declaration of intent form as well, and you are pulling them out of the school system, it doesn't mean that if your circumstances change, something happens with your family, and you need to put your kids possibly back into the public education system, they're obviously going to be just fine. You can do that. You can put them back in. You can let them know, hey, I need to re-enroll my child back into school, please. And they will gladly take your child back. Now, with that being said, do not take this form as an application to homeschool. What I mean by that is you are not asking or requesting permission from them to homeschool. You have every right to homeschool your kids and to educate your children in the way that you see fit for your family. If during this process you were given a hard time by school officials or somebody at the school, I want you to take this to heart and to know this. The school officials are no more an authority in the area of education that the public library is an authority over what you read. Both the public schools and the public library are there for the public's use if they choose to use their services. The school district needs to see the situation from the perspective that this child is yours, not theirs. And if this ends up becoming an obvious point of disagreement during the conversation, then you will need to respectfully remind them of this very fundamental and pivotal fact. This is an important point that I want to drive home. Remember also that teachers and school officials are not your authority. They are public servants and have no more jurisdiction over the education of your child than the public library has jurisdiction over what you read. Both are simply there for you to use if you feel so led. Nor is any school personnel an expert in educating your child, only in schooling the masses. That is a really powerful quote to realize and understand right there. I'm going to put a link below to the article that had all these quotes in it that you can actually read for yourself as well. It's through the Homeschooling Oasis website, which is the Washington State online course that can be taken for learning to be qualified to homeschool your kids. There is a lot of information and a lot of free articles to read right on that website, which is, a very powerful tool to have no matter what state you're in. You could go to it and learn some stuff. So I'm going to put that link below for your reference. Just know that I know that you can do this. Don't let this video intimidate you or scare you in the process. This is probably the hardest part of homeschooling, is then taking that leap of action and taking your children out of the public education system. I'm here to encourage you to have courage in that process and to take that step forward and take this step of action in pulling your kids out of the public education system. I will put a link below down in the description to the next step in the process, which is step 3. And I really hope that you did find this video helpful. Please feel free to let other people know about this channel. This could possibly help someone else who's a family member or a neighbor or a friend of yours too. I'm here to help and teach you the different steps of the process that it takes to homeschool kids. I believe in you. You can do this. And please subscribe so you don't miss another important homeschooling video. Thanks for watching.